Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Knecht, president of Universal Accounting Center. And for more than 20 years, 2 decades, I've been working with accounting professionals to help them start and build successful businesses, offering quality accounting services and getting paid what they're worth. It's here on the show that we actually dive into the various things that are essential for you to be successful, ranging from marketing, selling, pricing, tech stacks, training staff, onboarding clients, retaining clients, mental health, and so much more. It's here where we actually bring on the experts to discuss the things that matter most in our businesses so that we can actually stay relevant and, in fact, intentional about our services. So today's going to be an excellent discussion. I'm excited to have Paul Shrimpling on the show. Paul actually is someone that I've known for a little bit now. He is passionate for the accounting profession. In fact, he is actually someone with experience from the experience working with manufacturing businesses. In fact, he would actually say that as he forged his experience growing from scratch a 1 million manufacturing business, the annual check-in with his accountant never dealt with the emotional roller coaster that he was finding himself on as he was running his business, expanding into Europe, Middle East, and the USA, buying and building, surviving 2 recessions, opening a London showroom, and refinancing the business, or eventually selling it. That is what led him to remarkable practice. It's where he actually works exclusively now with accountants in practice and have dedicated himself for the last 20 years to helping them humanize the numbers. It's challenging them to better connect themselves with their business clients as well as the numbers that really matter. Yes, it's about the numbers. It's all about the people and how they actually feel about the numbers is what he says. He continues to work exclusively with accountants in practice, humanizing the numbers and challenging their status quo to better connect with all the people in the firm so that they can build a greater firm and transform their results. So, Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Roger. It's a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate you inviting me on.
You're welcome. This is going to be, I think, something we're both very passionate about and excited to discuss. So let me, first of all, just give you a little bit of an opportunity to introduce why this is something that you started, because clearly in the manufacturing realm, you had the experiences of working with an accountant and not feeling that connection. What led you to then want to work with accountants directly and actually help them build these relationships?
I think the experience, and it was a father and son business. So I helped my dad set the business up, and then we grew the business reasonably well, but slowly for a while, and then we accelerated the growth of the business in the latter years. And recessions, new building, exporting, never seemed to have the opportunity to get any insight from our accountant without receiving a significant fee for the privilege, whether it be a phone call or a piece of work. Now, I don't have a problem with that, but it was always as if we were, well, my mother would call it, it's like pulling teeth. It was hard work getting them to support what we were trying to do. And since then, I've worked with 5 other accountants in the other businesses that I've run over the years. And so that's 6 accountants in total. And 2 of them have profoundly changed my personal, or helped me make decisions that's changed my personal wealth, the success of the business, and actually ignited something which is, hopefully it comes across, a passion for the difference that accountants can make to business owners' lives. And it's in that space that I think there's such an opportunity, and it often gets missed out. Accountants focus on the numbers rather than on the humans, but actually in the human space is where the magic happens.
Yeah, well, your perspective of having worked with 6 accounting professionals and only 2 of them engaging with you as you would prefer is very telling. And it's very unfortunate because I do think that that's more of the norm. And one of the things that I think is very, at least interesting to me, is the fact that as a business owner, you would have been very open to that insight, that perspective. You would have appreciated those things, but they just weren't readily available. Or at most, you were saying that it came at a cost, which you were willing to pay. So I'm curious, what were those 2 accountants doing that was so different and unique that really resonated with you?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question, Roger. I think it's as simple as asking relatively simple but pointed questions about what was important to us. Important in terms of opportunities, but important about solving and dealing with challenges that we were facing. And then genuinely interested in the answers, and then wanting to maybe open out a conversation to work out what the relevant decision or solution should be. And I think that simple but underestimated skill of posing a handful of sometimes dumb questions, but sometimes smart questions of business owners, your clients, is what unpacks a deeper relationship, which results in client loyalty, results in accountants selling more, being able to charge more. and building client loyalty for a very long time.
Yes, yes. Well, one of the things that I think you started with that really matters to me is the curiosity that you're suggesting they have, just asking questions, just that mere fact that they're wondering what's going on in the business as they take the information that they're seeing, the numbers, and asking your correlating story to what it is that they're seeing. So as you were experiencing this with the two accountants that were curious enough and willing to ask those questions, I'm presuming that there were conversations about the business that the other accountants didn't understand or know, that the mere curiosity alone caused them to understand your business model, your interests, your goals, and more importantly, what it was that you were challenged with and the things that you were having difficulty with.
Sure.
What I'd want to know then is, how did you find that those two accountants were able to then contribute to the successes of your business because of that curiosity, those questions that were being asked?
Again, that's important. I think I'm just reading some psychological research into the psychology of the mind at the minute.
Okay.
Around, you've got to meet people where they are. You've got to get to a place of, and the word they use is acceptance of who's in front of you. And understanding. So acceptance and understanding requires you to be curious. So you pick out a profoundly valuable point: is be genuinely curious about what matters to them, where the challenges are, and where their opportunities lie. And that's exactly what these two accountants have done systematically over, actually, I've worked with both of them over the last 20 years now. And in there is the sense of reassurance, because we work with accountants and have done for the last 24 years, 19 as part of Remarkable Practice. There's a challenge around what's valuable. How do accountants demonstrate value? How do tax specialists, how do bookkeepers demonstrate value to their clients? And often I think they think it's attached to the services they deliver, when actually I would argue very strongly, based on my own personal experience and based on the experience of helping other firms do the same, and by the same I mean be curious about what matters to the human being, not just how they want to interact with the services that you provide. And it's in that service space that I think sometimes derails the value. Simply asking me a question is reassuring that I know you care as an accountant. And if I know you care, I'm going to trust you in a deeper way and therefore be more willing to pay more, buy more, and recommend your services to other people. That's how I see it as a business owner. And, I've recommended Rob and Neil multiple times to multiple people over the years because I have that certainty. I have the reassurance. It's an emotional payoff, Roger. It's not a functional or factual or financial payoff. It's just, I've got an emotional connection and I appreciate that they have my back. They have my best interests at heart. I don't know if you find this, but whenever I see an accountant grasp this, yes, let's just have a deeper conversation, all of a sudden their quality of the relationships with their clients, their quality of their work experience goes up, as well as the results of the business. I don't know if you find that.
Oh, I do find that. And one of the things that I'm liking here is the choices of words you're using as you're describing all this. We started with curiosity. You added to it the term genuine curiosity. I think there is an interest that they're expressing there. It's not just a curiosity because they're going through the motions of asking questions. They're genuinely interested in the answers that you're going to provide. And the other thing that you brought to the equation was the idea of caring. These people are actually caring about the answers, and their curiosity is causing them to get more engaged with you as a client, because as a business owner, it's not just these reports that you're getting, the numbers that are being provided. You're living on a day-to-day basis the business experience. But what you're trying to get from the accounting professional is the accounting's information, the language of business as to how the company is communicating numerically what's happening in the business and how the two correspond or relate. And as a business owner, you're curious, what is the business saying? Am I profitable? Do I have a return on investment? Do I have the capital I need for this next growth phase that I'm looking to do? All of these things become relevant from an accounting point of view. And if the accountant is able to bring that perspective to the conversation, it's far more engaging. So the next thing I wanted to know is you were talking about the valuation of these services. You're talking to accounting professionals, helping them try to give greater value in the services that they're offering. And it's moving us away from that commoditized service that we're typically known for. And it's giving us an opportunity to get more engaged with the clients. And so I'm going to describe something to you, and I'd like to see how you feel about this, because I define accounting services as 3 core services: bookkeeping and accounting, tax planning and preparation, and CFO and advisory services. And it's those 6 things that really define, I think, what it is we offer as an accounting profession to our clients. But the thing that I want to really dive into with you here is how you see the difference between the bookkeeping and accounting as it relates to the CFO and advisory type services. The fact that the client is getting into the business model, and as an accounting professional, you're getting into the nuances of how the company makes money. It's not just reporting the transactions. It's not just providing the reports, but it's getting into the cash flow of the business model itself, how it is actually becoming profitable. What would you say is interesting as a business owner to you as it relates to that advisory discussion?
I think there's, before I answer the question, you sounded back to me, there's curiosity matters, caring matters. And I think there's another part to that, which I took from a gentleman called Ed Gasheen from the US. And he talks about the third part of the equation is committed to help. So Rob and Neil have both been curious. They've both cared deeply, and they've both been committed to help, which then leads into your question in terms of bookkeeping, tax, accounts, CFO, advisory, and so on. And in that space, I think there's a distinction between let's have a deep appreciation, understanding, and what's the word I'm looking for? Interpretation of the numbers in such a way I, as a business owner, can make a better decision based on the past data that my accounts, management accounts, and so on will release, if only it was interpreted well enough by the accountant. And then as we drop into the advisory and CFO space, I do think there needs to be a shift. And this is where, I've literally got off a call with Rob, one of the 2 of the 6 that have been brilliant for us. And that whole conversation was focused on the future, not on the past. And helping us analyze and pull some facts together based on our past history that's facilitating 1 or 2 big strategic decisions going forwards. And so we've got 3 pieces of work we've got to do in order to present to essentially our non-exec now in a month's time, which will determine what we next do in the business. And so let's look at the past business. Let's look at the forward business. Let's be curious. Let's care and be committed to help. And then I think we've got the magic components. There's some history. Let's interpret that in such a way it helps me make decisions based on the history. But then also, whether it's forecasting or analyze things on scenarios is what Rob's got us doing, is looking at 3 different scenarios for the future of the business. What do we do? I'm not sure I've answered your question as well as I would have liked, but I think there are those components contribute to me feeling as though I'm getting massive value from Rob as a chartered accountant.
Actually, I love the terms you used. I think you did answer my question because, first of all, interpret. One of the things that I do emphasize is that the role of the accounting professional is to, in fact, be the interpreter of that language of business accounting to help the business owner understand what it is that it's communicating. You're the translator for the company. You're the in-between of the business owner and the business who's trying to communicate. And as that translator, you're helping that business owner now get better understandings of their company to acquire the wisdom that I think you were looking for. That wisdom, which is that gut sense of running the business. It's that intuitive nature that's now it's more insightful because of the information that the business owner is now able to glean from these reports and this discussion. But the thing that I think is powerful about what you just shared is then the forward thinking of this whole discussion. I look at it as asking the question, therefore what? All of a sudden now what we're doing is we're looking forward to say, okay, with this experience that I have as a business owner, with the information you're providing as an accounting professional, I can make better informed business decisions about tomorrow. I can plan better, prepare better. And that's one of the things that I think the business owner is looking for is the application of this accounting information. It's not merely the I've got the work, or I've got the financial
Here's the
reports
report.
done.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
now, what do I do with it? And I think that's what you're alluding to, is these discussions about tomorrow. Let's be honest, most of us didn't become bookkeepers or accountants to spend hours learning marketing systems and chasing leads. We did it to serve clients and build a business we love. But what if you could get better clients without the marketing overwhelm? That's exactly what Keepful does. It's the all-in-one marketing system built specifically for bookkeepers and accountants, and it works 24/7 behind the scenes to bring in leads, book consultations, and automate follow-ups. You get a professional website, branded consultation page, and follow-up automations, all tailored to your business. No more duct taping tools together or hiring expensive marketing teams. If you want to grow your firm with ease and attract better clients without doing more work, go check out Keepful today at keepful.com. So the next question I want to have is, accounting professionals do oftentimes find themselves hurried and moving from client to client, not having these conversations. Oftentimes, I don't feel that they are necessarily comfortable having these conversations. Am I prying too much? Am I asking too many questions? I mean, it is their business. Am I really supposed to know these things? But I think from a business owner's point of view, I think they like to talk about their company. They want to have these conversations. So what do you feel is holding the accountant back from perhaps having this discussion?
What's holding the accountant back from having the discussion? I think you've flagged up one of the main reasons is they're too busy. One of the reasons they're too busy is because they've charged their work at a certain level. So in order to make the money they want, they've got to work really hard and cram as much as they possibly can in the time available, which then drives this get the job done obsession as opposed to get closer to your client obsession. And so therefore we've got to have a pricing conversation.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to have a better value conversation. And I think, and I'd like your views on this, Roger, is when you sat with a prospective client, and this works for us in our business, but it equally works for every accountant, tax professional talking to a prospective client, you will take the time to be curious in that moment. And then maybe they say yes, and then they become a client, and then you stop being curious. And that sounds like commercial. Well, it sounds like a commercial minefield. So you raise their expectations in terms of, how valued they feel because you've been curious, you care, and you're committed to help. And then you go away. So you raise their expectations, and then they become a client, and then you just a bit like the previous accountant was, in that you're not available as much as you could be. And I think that's because accountants see the value, and I'm repeating myself here, I know, the value of what they do is connected to the services, rather than the value of what they're doing is connected to the emotional payoff to the client, which comes from the conversation and the reassurance that they get from working with you.
Yes. Well, I'm going to now say what you just said in a way that I think my listeners will understand, because of something I've said previously in some of the shows. I speak of the sales process, just like you described it, where you're curious, you're asking about the business, you're having an interest in the company. And once you get the engagement, just as you described, the work sets in. And all of a sudden, we're in that work mode where we're actually just providing the reports and we're moving on. And therefore, that curiosity that we first demonstrated when we were asking about the business to get them as a client kind of dissipates. It goes away. And all of a sudden, the client is finding 6 months, 9 months, 12 months later, we're not engaged with them any longer. We're not asking those questions. We're no longer curious, which is further from the truth. We are curious, but we're so busy, as you've described, to say we don't have the time to actually get into there. But that's the value of the relationship. One of the things that I think we're too quick to forget is the lifetime value of the relationship we have.
Yeah.
It's not meant that we're actually having a client for 3 months, 6 months. We could have a potential client for as long as 7 years working with an average bookkeeping accounting client. Well, if we have a lifetime value of a client of not just $6,000 a year, but 6,000 times 7, all of a sudden, when we've got a $40,000 client that we're working with, we're much more interested in our relationship, our connection, our involvement with them. And we're willing to become a lot more committed because we no longer see them as simply a $5,000 or $500 a month client. We see them as a $6,000 a year client, a $40,000 client over a lifespan. That's valuable information. It changes our perspective.
I think I just want to turn this around if I can, Roger. I think the key issue here, or the key question, let's go for a question, is what's prompted the prospective new client to be sat in a room considering working with you rather than staying with their existing accountant or tax or bookkeeper?
That is an excellent question. I think these, it varies, but the more common answers is one, they don't have the information. They don't feel that they're compliant. They don't feel that they have the needed information to file their tax returns. So it's starting at the very basic level of, I'm not legally doing what needs to be done as a business to meet my obligations, either from a tax perspective or shareholders perspective. So it begins at just that base level. But there's another level up, which is,
work's not being done on time.
Correct. And it's not just on time, it's the fact that I don't even have it. They haven't filed their tax returns for a few years or something. So there is that compliance issue. But let's take it up a notch. There's also the fact that as a business owner, they may be realizing that they're running the business blindly. They don't have the information to make intelligent decisions. And so there's an interest of, am I actually making money? Do I have a return on my investment? And so is there some way that I can get on top of my receivables? Could I manage cash flow better because I feel like I'm always running it short to make payroll? So there's some pressing things there that they know, I really should be doing accounting a little bit more intelligently and deliberately in my business. Let's go to another level. The next level is, I need to be more strategic about my business. If I had this information, I might make better decisions. And so I might be prompted to bring someone in to do the accounting for me because I feel like if I planned better, I might mitigate some of the tax liabilities I have. I might be able to save money. I might be able to have better relationships with regards to the bank. I might be able to get better loans. I might be able to get better investments. Those things are all contingent upon having new and accurate and timely information. So I'm seeing value in those numbers. But I'm going to go one more level. I work so hard for the things that I sell and do. Wouldn't it be nice if I can improve my margins? If I could actually be more intelligent about my business, if I brought in a CFO, an advisor, an accountant that can actually help me with the business model itself and help me see things that I may be overlooking that could increase my profit margins and so forth. That is more of a proactive, futuristic way of looking at the business of how could I grow the company? And if I had these insights, wouldn't it be better? So I think there's levels as it relates to what prompts an individual to want to have an accountant involved in the business. Would you agree?
Yes. I just want to flag something up.
Please.
So base layer compliance isn't there. I just don't have the information I need. Second, I'm running blind. More strategic, improved margins. I think there's something fundamental underpinning all of those four. And there's various bits of research over the last 25 years in the UK in terms of why business leaders leave that accounting firm and join this accounting firm. And the number one reason that's come out systematically, time and time again on many different research studies, is the concept of perceived indifference. And so clearly the indifference is there if I haven't got my information. Now, whether that's my indifference as the business owner not working well enough with the accountant, or is it the accountant not working well enough with me? Well, hang on a second. They're meant to be supplying me, so that's the responsibility of the accountant. And I'm running blind. Well, that's the responsibility of the accountant. More strategic, don't get me wrong, the business owner's got some of this responsibility, but the person that they're buying from is either indifferent or committed to help at all of those four levels. And so if you can have a conversation with the prospect around what is it that's prompted them to leave their other accountant, almost certainly they'll get back something that sounds like perceived indifference. And if you go, right, well, if you don't want to feel that way with us, then we've got to build more time in for us to work together. And so here's an option, which is us working with you every month or every quarter, or at least twice a year to dive deep into your numbers so that you never feel as though we're ignoring you or we're indifferent to what you need. And that's at a higher price. So instead of it being $6,000, it ends up being $11,000 or $12,000 because there's more interaction, which creates the space in which to not do a low value piece of work over here because I'm looking after an A-grade client that's worth 7 times 12, which is different from the $40,000 that you were talking. And I think the way you start with a new client ultimately impacts on your margin going forward, your fees going forward, more than any other moment in the history of that client. Because if you establish it at $6,000 as opposed to $11,000, you'll make incremental increases. It's a big deal. And I think tapping into the fact that business owners that really care about the business want more. They want a better business. They want a better life for themselves, their families, and so on. It's really human running a business. The reason they settled the business in the first place is for really strong human reasons, either pain because they've been made redundant or lost their job, pain because they just couldn't fit, or whatever the reason is. They want someone who cares, someone who'll invest time, effort, and energy, someone who'll be highly responsive, and they'll be willing to pay for that if they're a good business client.
You know, I like how you articulated why someone is actually moving from one accountant to another, because I believe you nailed it on the head. It is an emotional decision more often than not. And one of the things that's very important here is, first of all, responsiveness, whether or not we're actually responsive and engaged with our clients. And that's the second thing, the engagement, which is literally, are we bringing something to the table that shows curiosity and interest in their well-being as a business owner? And so those two components that you were tapping into there, I do agree, are the motivators to cause someone to look for someone else. I don't feel that my accountant is engaged, and I don't feel that they're responsive. Those are two things that will fundamentally drive them to say, I need to consider another service. So you hit that. But the other thing is you brought up Humanize, and I wanted to end on this. You talk about humanizing the numbers. What does that really mean?
It's a great question. I'm just going to refer, because Roger, we run a podcast as well called Humanize the Numbers. Mm-hmm. So people can check some of those out if they wish. We had a gentleman from Australia called Andrew van der Beek, and he said, isn't it interesting? So when an accountant is doing accountancy work, or a tax professional is doing tax or bookkeeping work, at that moment you have to be 80% accountant and 20% human. But when you're in front of a client, when you're talking with a client, meeting with a client, then you need to be 80% human and 20% accountant. And so to answer your question, what is it to be human? I think I'm just circling back to care enough, be curious enough, be committed to help enough. And as a professional, you elevate yourself and elevate the levels of trust in that discussion, which turn you from accountant to human being. Because humans care. Humans are committed to help each other. Humans are genuinely curious about their past, their present, and their future. And I don't think it's complicated. It's back to ask a few questions, demonstrate that you've heard the answers, share your own stories and your own challenges and difficulties so that they can see that you're the same as they are. To be humans, to have really good conversations. To have really good conversations about asking decent questions and listening to the answers in a deep way.
I like how you shared with humanizing this whole experience that you need to be willing to also share your stories, and you need to share perhaps some of your mistakes or challenges, because it makes it more personable. So I think that's a very key element.
And authentic.
Yeah. The one thing that I think is also very relatable here is the fact that when you're talking about humanizing this experience, we have to respect and remember that as a business owner, they are becoming very vulnerable with us as accounting professionals, wherein as accounting professionals, we probably know more about them, their business, and their personal financial situation than perhaps most everyone else they're interacting with, their spouses, their management, their employees, their friends. We know things financially about them that probably no one else knows. And so to respect that trust, to understand that they are opening up to us, is very important. And it is, as you're describing, a human experience. And so we need to respect that it's not just this number, quantifiable, intangible kind of a thing. It is very emotional, and it's very much a bonding moment if we choose to actually embrace it as such, going beyond just the numbers themselves. The turnkey marketing and sales process to getting accounting clients with confidence. The Universal CRM is in fact a tool designed for accounting professionals to help them automate the process to the point of not only finding potentially new clients, but having meetings and getting new engagements to retain them as clients. This process is made up of using specific tools such as CRMs, email marketing, text messaging, sales pipelines, forms, and funnels, as well as reputation management and social proof, getting the testimonials that you need online to substantiate your skills and services. All of these tools and technologies are leveraged to your benefit using the Universal CRM. Go to the episode description and there get the information you need to take advantage of this today. So what advice would you have for an accountant who wishes to actually have that human relationship with their clients, engaging with them at that level and perhaps stepping into that advisory space?
Brilliant. And measure the right number. And I think arguably the right number in your firm is how many meetings and conversations are you committed to with client A all the way through to client Z. And so let's say it averages 2 meetings per client and let's say you've got 100 clients. So that means there's 200 meetings. In a 50-week year, that means there's going to be 2 meetings a week. And unless you deliver on those 2 meetings a week, you will have perceived indifference in some of your clients. It's about managing client expectations, agreeing up front how many calls, how many meetings are we going to have, and be willing to pay for that interaction, and then delivering on that. And I think, well, my experience tells me, Roger, that very few firms track the number of client meetings they have, which I think's naive at best, and ultimately underpins the fact that they're not doing enough in that care, committed to help, curious space. So I'd go, right, track a number that really matters, which is the number of meetings you have with clients. And only when you can drive the volume of meetings up will you drive the quality of those meetings up. Management's about drive quantity up first, then drive the quality of the interactions. You'll work out how to ask smarter, better, more intimate questions, which leads me on to the other part, which is ultimately, fundamentally, you've brilliantly described the fact that the relationship's founded on trust. And I love Charles Green's trust equation. Trust, which I think is about being human. So it's another way of unpacking the humanity, is trust equals be credible, be reliable, be intimate, and just part yourself out the room. Leave your ego out. It's not about you. It's about the client. Your self-orientation, he calls it. And it's an equation, reliability plus credibility plus intimacy, number, volume and quality of meetings divided by self-orientation. So if it's all about you in the meeting, you don't care enough, you're not committed to help enough. Get yourself out of there, metaphorically, and meet the client where they're at. And you'll build high trust, you'll build highly human interactions, which fundamentally enable you to charge more, help your clients buy more, and have your clients wanting to recommend you more, which will ultimately grow your firm, which I'm sure is what all of your listeners want for themselves.
I really think you hit the nail on the head with that, because you've talked about now them getting paid what they're worth, so increasing that bill rate. You've talked about the human side of the business, making this so that it is a people-oriented business when we're meeting with our clients, meeting them where they are and helping actually them take that next step forward. And it does require us to be vulnerable with them and them with us. But the thing that I really liked about this is also the fact that because we made this a personable interaction, we become much more valuable to these people for the longer haul. Therefore, we're extending the lifetime value of the client relationship. So we're getting paid more for longer. And this is a better client relationship. So I'm trusting that referrals are going to come from it. There's just a whole bunch of wins in here if we just chose to be curious, be genuine, care, and more importantly, engage with them at a personal level. So we've hit on so many wonderful things here. So last thing I want to do is, I know you've written a book. It's a book that I'd like to actually introduce to our audience here. You're going to make it available, and in the episode description, we're going to have information about your firm's future. But tell my listeners what this book is and why they should read it.
It's about strategic health, Roger. So success is one thing, sustainable success is something else. And sustainable success is dependent absolutely on 2 groups of people. 1, your clients, 2, your team. Your client loyalty will result in them buying more, paying more, and recommending you. And it's only the way you and your team interact with your clients that ultimately determine whether they stay loyal, because your team determine whether you deliver on time. And whether you care enough and whether the quality of the work they do is of the right standard. And so we as leaders have to communicate and create an environment and culture where the team want to look after your clients. And when your team want to, they're fully engaged, your clients will be loyal and you'll get the results, the sustainable success you want for your business. And for that to happen, you need strategic health. That's going to build that sustainability over the long term into your business. And for us, that's about answering the 8 questions of strategic health. So it's a bit about vision and personal goals. There's 2 of the questions. There's a big bit about purpose and values, behavioral standards, which is culture and why we in business. And that's all very much in that team space. Because when the team can see and feel real meaning behind what they're doing, and it's connected to their personal goals, and that actually they're achieving something for the business as well, those connections are much stronger and they deliver better for your clients. Then we're into, right, what really matters to your clients. Then we're into, let's have a reality check. What's going on in the business that is challenging us internally and externally, maybe economics, maybe cultural challenges, trends, and so on. And then let's every 13 weeks without fail do something about it all. So that we've got a long-term vision, say 5 years ahead, with some ambitious numbers to hit. But we're building, encouraging that team engagement to deliver for the clients who buy more, pay more, recommend us more. And the OKRs, objectives and key results, every 13 weeks, just like Intel, just like Google, just like many of the most successful businesses on the planet use, make a strategic step every 13 weeks. Ultimately, the book unpacks those 8 questions of strategic health so that you can build an accounting firm, a tax practice, a bookkeeping practice that's going to deliver you on your personal goals and your business vision, and you can feel as though there's real meaning behind your life doing what I think is one of the most profoundly impactful professions on the planet, which is the world of accountancy.
I love this. This is great. Well, I invite my listeners to take advantage of this opportunity and go to the episode description and get a copy of this book and look at what it is you can be doing to work on your business, applying these various principles in your company today. In addition, let me go ahead and give a little shout out for 2 other offers that are being made available by Universal Accounting Center that you'll want to take advantage of. One is getting the book, Your Strategic Accountant. It addresses much of the topics that we've addressed here today as to the services that you should be providing in your firm as it relates to accounting. As you work with your clients, there are specific things that they expect from us as accounting professionals. And it's here in the book that we address what those 3 core services are and how it is that you can best meet your clients where they are and help them succeed in their companies. Now, with that, I also want to invite you to become a profit and growth expert. Many of the things that we've talked about here, moving into that advisory space, becoming for your clients that trusted advisor is exactly what it is to become a profit and growth expert. So go to the episode description and find out more today what it is you can do to offer these quality services and get paid what you're worth. Why? Because you're actually meeting your clients where they are and becoming for them that profit and growth expert. Now, the next thing I'd like to do is a quick summary of our conversation. I think this has been a wonderful discussion, and then I'll come back to Paul for a closing thought. As it relates to the business, clearly being a business owner, someone successfully growing companies internationally, he ran into various challenges, and he found that of the accountants that he's worked with over the years, only 2 of the 6 actually met him where he was needing the information, not just the data, but also the insights as it related to his business. They were willing to actually engage with him at a different level. And we talked about what that was, what was different or unique about them. And he talked about that genuine curiosity that they brought to the business, being willing to ask questions about him and the company. The other thing that was also very important is they cared. It was a constant thing that they continued to build on. And it was because of that care that they actually were able to get into that more future thinking mindset. What does this mean so that we can actually plan for the future? And in doing so, help Paul actually make great decisions, moving him up the wisdom pyramid so that he can more confidently make decisions as they related to the business. We talked about how for the accounting professional, the business owners that they're looking for are those that are actually engaged, those that are willing to be responsive. Those things are what matter most if we're wanting to actually get paid what we're worth and, more importantly, retain these clients for a longer period of time. So we talked about the emotional side of the client relationship, and it's more than just being compliant and providing the numbers. It's actually engaging with them and, more importantly, being responsive. The last thing that I wanted to point out is really with regards to running the business. I think as accounting professionals, we have to remember this is a people business. It does require us to have meetings, to have that personal relationship with the clients, and we need to be willing to do that. If so, we're going to keep, find, retain, and even get more referrals. So this is a win-win for us. It's for the client as well. I think this has been a great conversation. Paul, what more would you add?
I'd just ask everyone listening to this, so as you're contemplating this discussion and the insights is, someone said to me, a mentor of mine, Peter Thompson, said, look, people won't consistently do who they aren't, but they will consistently do who they are. And what I mean by that is if you go away and capture the 3 landmark stories of your profession, of your life in practice, and unpack the way you and your team, you and your firm have made a difference to those clients, you'll start to see yourself in a different light. And it's in that light that you can charge better, deliver better, and earn the right to a sustainably, strategically healthy accounting, tax, and bookkeeping business.
Wonderful. Well said, Paul. And I agree. We're more inclined to be who we are anyways. It's just natural. So that makes sense. So everyone, if you've enjoyed today's podcast, I want you to go ahead and subscribe. If you haven't already, we'd love to have you as a subscriber of the show. It's here that you're going to get the notifications each and every week when we come out with a new episode of things that you need to be considering to become the premier accounting firm in your area. In addition, I want to invite you to go to universalaccounting.com. There in the site navigation, you'll find the podcast section where we've compiled highlights. These are basically playlists of various episodes that we've had in the past where we dive into specific things that matter most to you. If it relates to marketing, selling, tech stacks, mental health, go there, find the things that are relevant to your current situation and hear what the experts have to say about those things that matter most to you today. It's there that you can binge listen to these playlists, and I encourage you to take advantage of that. The other thing I want you to pay notice to is the free resource section. In the navigation, there's a free resource section where we've actually gathered a number of free resources that you can take advantage of. These are things such as ebooks, courses, white papers, just a number of things that you'll want to take advantage of as you're working on your business. And they're available to you today going to universalaccounting.com and in the navigation going to the free resource section. The last thing I want to do is invite you to GrowCon. GrowCon is an annual conference, an event for you as an owner of a bookkeeping, accounting, and tax business to come and hear from the experts, to meet your peers, collaborate with those individuals that are like you, growing their businesses, working on their companies, becoming the premier accounting firm in their area. And it's there you actually get to build not only great connections, but friendships. You also get to meet my team and myself coming and joining us to actually work on your business, but not be by yourself as you're with Universal Accounting. So all of these things in mind, join me for GrowCon. Go to the site navigation, get your ticket today, and join me at GrowCon, and I look forward to seeing you there. Now, with all that being said, obviously, if you have questions regarding these principles and others that we've discussed today on how it is you can actually build the premier accounting firm, give us a phone call. You can reach us at 801-265-3777, or you can visit us at universalaccountingschool.com. Why? Because accounting success is universal. Take care, be safe out there, and have a great day.